Friday, March 3rd, 1944. Dear Kitty, when I looked into the candle this evening, I felt calm and happy. Oma seems to be in the candle, and it is Oma, too, who shelters and protects me and who always makes me feel happy again. But there is someone else who governs all my moods, and that is Peter. When I went up to get potatoes today and was still standing on the stepladder with the pan, he at once asked, "What have you been doing since lunch?" I went and sat on the steps, and we started talking. At 5:15, an hour later, the potatoes, which had been sitting on the floor in the meantime, finally reached their destinations. Peter didn't say another word about his parents. We just talked about books and about the past. The boy has such warmth in his eyes. I believe I'm pretty near to being in love with him. He talked about that this evening. I went into his room after peeling potatoes and said that I felt so hot. You can tell what the temperature is by Margot and me. If it's cold, we are white, and if it is hot, we are red in the face, I said. In love? He asked. Why should I be in love? My answer was rather silly. Why not? He said, and then we had to go for supper. Would he have meant anything by that question? I finally managed to ask him today whether he didn't find my chatter a nuisance. He only said, "It's okay, I like it." To what extent this answer was just shyness, I am not able to judge. Kitty, I'm just like someone in love who can only talk about her darling, and Peter really is a darling. When shall I be able to tell him so? Naturally, only if he thinks I'm a darling too. But I'm quite capable of looking after myself, and he knows that very well, and he likes his tranquillity, so I have no idea how much he likes me. In any case, we are getting to know each other a bit. I wish we dared to tell each other much more already. Who knows, the time may come sooner than I think. I get an understanding look from him about twice a day. I wink back, and we both feel happy. I certainly seem quite mad to be talking about him being happy, and yet I feel pretty sure that he thinks just the same as I do. Yours, Anne. Saturday, March 4th, 1944. Dear Kitty, this is the first Saturday for months and months that hasn't been boring, dreary, and dull, and Peter is the cause. This morning I went to the attic to hang up my apron when Daddy asked whether I'd like to stay and talk some French. I agreed. First we talked French, and I explained something to Peter. Then we did some English. Daddy read out loud to us from Dickens, and I was in the seventh heaven because I sat on Daddy's chair very close to Peter. I went downstairs at 11 o'clock. When I came upstairs again at 11:30, he was already waiting for me on the stairs. We talked until 1:45, if as I leave the room he gets a chance after a meal, for instance, and if no one can hear, he says, "Goodbye, Anne. See you soon." Oh, I am so pleased. I wonder if he's going to fall in love with me after all. Anyway, he is a very nice fellow, and no one knows what lovely talks I have with him. Mrs. Van Daan quite approves when I go and talk to him, but she asks together teasingly, "Can I really trust you two up there together?" "Of course," I protested. "Really, you quite insult me." From morn till night I look forward to seeing Peter. Yours, Anne. Monday, March 6, 1944. Dear Kitty, I can tell by Peter's face that he thinks just as much as I do, and when Mrs. Van Daan yesterday evening said scoffingly, "The thinker," I was irritated. Peter flushed and looked very embarrassed, and I was about to explode. Why can't these people keep their mouths shut? You can't imagine how horrible it is to stand by and see how lonely he is, and yet not be able to do anything. I can so well imagine, just as if I were in his place, how desperate he must feel sometimes on quarrels and in love. Poor Peter. He needs love very much. When he said he didn't need any friends, how harsh the words sounded to my ears. Oh, how mistaken he is. I don't believe he meant it a bit. He clings to his solitude, to his affected indifference and his grown-up ways, but it's just an act so as never, never to show his real feelings. Poor Peter, how long will he be able to go on playing this role? Surely, a terrible outburst must follow as the result of this superhuman effort. Oh, Peter, if only I could help you, if only you would let me. Together we could drive away your loneliness and mine. I think a lot, but I don't say much. I am happy if I see him and if the sun shines when I'm with him. I was very excited yesterday. While I was washing my hair, I knew that he was sitting in the room next to ours. I couldn't do anything about it. The more quiet and serious I feel inside, the more noisy I become outwardly. Who will be the first to discover and break through this armor? I'm glad, after all, that the Van Daans have a son and not a daughter. My conquest could have never been so difficult, so beautiful, so good, if I had not happened to hit on someone of the opposite sex. Yours, Anne. P.S. You know that I'm always honest with you, so I must tell you that I actually live from one meeting to the next. I keep hoping to discover that he, too, is waiting for me all the time, and I'm thrilled if I notice a small shy advance from his side. I believe he'd like to say it a lot, just like I would. Little does he know that it's just his clumsiness that attracts me. Yours, Anne. Tuesday, March 7th, 1944. Dear Kitty, if I think now of my life in 1942, it all seems so unreal. It was quite a different Anne who enjoyed that heavenly existence from the Anne who has grown wise within these walls. Yes, it was a heavenly life. Boyfriends at every turn, about 20 friends and acquaintances of my own age, the darling of nearly all the teachers, spoiled from top to toe by Mummy and Daddy, lots of sweets, enough pocket money. What more could one want? You will certainly wonder by what means I got around all these people. Peter's word attractiveness is not altogether true. All the teachers were entertained by my cute answers, my amusing remarks, my smiling face, and my questioning looks. That is all I was, a terrible flirt, coquettish and amusing. I had one or two advantages which kept me rather in favor. I was industrious, honest, and frank. I would never have dreamed of cribbing from anyone else. I shared my sweets generously, and I wasn't conceited. What I have become rather floored with so much admiration. I was a good thing in that in the midst of, at the height of all this gaiety, I suddenly had to face reality, and it took me at least a year to get used to the fact there was no more admiration forthcoming. How did I appear at school? The one who thought of new jokes and pranks, always king of the castle, never in a bad mood, never a crybaby. No wonder everyone liked to cycle with me, and I got their attention. Now I look back at that Anne as an amusing but very superficial girl who has nothing to do with the Anne of today. Peter said quite rightly about me, "If ever I saw you, you were always surrounded by 2 or more boys and a whole troop of girls. You were always laughing and always the center of everything." What is left of this girl? Oh, don't worry, I haven't forgotten how to laugh or to answer back readily. I'm just as good, if not better, at criticizing people, and I can still flirt if I wish. That's not it, though. I'd like that sort of life again for an evening, a few days, or even a week, the life which seems so carefree and gay. But at the end of the week I should be dead beat, and would be only too thankful to listen to anyone who began to talk about something sensible. I don't want followers, but friends, admirers, who fall not for a flattering smile, but for what one does and for one's character. I know quite well that the circle around me would be much smaller, but what does that matter, as long as one still keeps a few sincere friends? Yet I wasn't entirely happy in 1942, in spite of everything. I often felt deserted, but because I wanted to go on, I was on the go the whole day long. I didn't think about it and enjoy myself as much as I could. Consciously or unconsciously, I tried to drive away the emptiness I felt with jokes and pranks. Now I think seriously about life and what I have to do. One period of my life is over forever. The carefree school days are gone, never to return. I don't even long for them anymore. I have outgrown them. I can't just only enjoy myself, and my serious side is always there. I look upon my life till the new year, as it were, through a powerful magnifying glass. The sunny life at home, the coming here in 1942, the sudden change, the quarrels, the bickerings. I couldn't understand it. I was taken by surprise, and the only way I could keep up some bearing was by being impertinent. The first half of 1943, my fits of crying, the loneliness, how I slowly began to see all my faults and shortcomings, which are so great, and which seemed much greater then. During the day I deliberately talked about anything and everything that was farthest from my thoughts, tried to draw Pym to me, but couldn't. Alone I had to face the difficult task of changing myself to stop the everlasting reproaches, which were so oppressive, and which reduced me to such terrible despondency. Things improved slightly in the second half of the year. I became a young woman and was treated more like a grown-up. I started to think and write stories, and came to the conclusion that the others no longer had the right to throw me about like an India rubber ball. I wanted to change in accordance with my own desires. But one thing that struck me even more was when I realized that even Daddy would never become my confidant over everything. I didn't want to trust anyone but myself anymore. At the beginning of the new year, the second great change, my dream, and when I discovered my longing not for a girlfriend but for a boyfriend, I also discovered my inward happiness and my defensive armor are superficiality and gaiety. In due time I quieted down and discovered my boundless desire for all that is beautiful and good. And in the evening, when I lie in bed and end my prayers with the words, "I thank you, God, for all that is good and dear and beautiful," I am filled with joy, Then I think about the good of going into hiding, of my health, and with my whole being of the dearness of Peter, of that which is still embryonic and impressionable, and which we neither of us dare to name or touch, or that will come sometime, or which will come sometime, love, the future happiness, and the beauty which exists in the world, nature, beauty, and all that is exquisite and fine. I don't think, then, of all the misery, but of the beauty that still remains. This is one of the things that Mummy and I are so entirely different about. Her counsel when one feels melancholy is, think of all the misery in the world and be thankful that you're not sharing in it. My advice is, go outside to the fields, enjoy nature and the sunshine. Go out and try to recapture happiness in yourself and in God. Think of all the beauty that's still left in and around you and be happy. I don't see how Mummy's idea can be right, because then how are you supposed to behave if you go through the misery yourself? Then you are lost. On the contrary, I have found that there is always some beauty left in nature, sunshine, freedom, in yourself. These can all help you. Look at these things, then you find yourself again, and God, and then you regain your balance. And whoever is happy will make others happy too. He who has courage and faith will never perish in misery. Yours, Anne.